We're back. What does 2024 have in store for the Montreal Canadiens? We'll talk about this and more on Hockey Inside Out. Hello and welcome to our first episode of 2024. This is Hockey Inside Out. I'm your host, Jessica Rusnak, and joining me is the usual gang. We've got Stu Cowan from the Montreal Gazette. We have former NHLer, Stanley Cup champ, former assistant coach with the Montreal Canadiens, Rick Green, and Andrew Berkshire, program director at Game Over on SDPN Sports. So the Canadiens are currently a 500 team, but they only have 8 regulation wins heading into Wednesday night's game against the Philadelphia Flyers. How would you describe this rebuild process that the Canadiens are currently on? Stu, you get the first take of the new year.
Yeah, well, it's kind of remarkable when you think about it. They only have 8 regulation wins in their first 39 games. And if you go back to the way the standings were when Rick played, when there was no overtime or shootout, they'd have 14 ties. So it's sort of, the loser point is then exactly what Gary Bettman wanted it to do. It keeps teams in playoff contention longer, including the Canadiens, who are, not that far. They're 7 points, I think it is, out of a wild card spot at this point. So that's what it was meant for, right? It was meant for teams that aren't that good to look a little bit better. They've got 37 points heading into the game against Philadelphia, the way the standings are now. If the standings were the way they were back when Rick played, it was a tie and you got a point, they'd have 30 points. So that's exactly what that loser point was intended to do when they put it in place. And it works. I mean, it would make more sense to go to the 3-2-1 point system like they do in European soccer, 3 points for regulation win, or 2 points for overtime win, and then 1 point for the other one. But it's exactly what the NHL wanted when they brought this in, was to keep teams in contention and keep fans interested and keep fans watching, and that system has worked for the Canadiens.
I mean, yeah, like Stu said, 8 wins, regulation wins. It's not really a great stat. And I mean, I look at the overall picture to date, and looking at their goals for, looking at their goals against, looking at their special teams, looking at all of the areas that you would expect to be a little bit better. Are not better, and the result is they are where they are, and they're going to have to find ways to improve in some of those areas. And I don't know if they got injuries. There's so many things that are coming into play with this team to date, and the bottom line here is you got to show some improvement. And right now, I don't want to be negative, but there's not a lot of great things that are happening in their overall game.
I think you can look at this 2 ways, right? If you look at goal differential, they're 5th last in the league, which is exactly where they were last year. Last year at even strength, they had an expected goals for percentage of around 43%. This year, they're closer to 47%. So there is improvements. Maybe they're not turning out in terms of pure goal differential, but the record is improved, right? Winning all the time in overtime in the shootout, not the most sustainable thing, but we know this isn't a playoff team. I think the thing that I focus on this year is who are the guys that are actually going to stick around at the end of this rebuild, and how are they playing? And that's where I see the positivity for this season, because we've seen big improvements from Nick Suzuki. Cole Caufield hasn't gotten the goals going in, but his overall game wildly improved over last year. Juraj Slafkovsky wildly improved over last year. Caden Gooley significantly improved, even though he's in a rough stretch. So there's lots of good signs to point to, but overall, there's still a team that right now has 2 NHL centers, one of whom is Jake Evans, who should probably be on the 4th line, right? Other than that, the injuries are killing them again. They can't seem to stay healthy, 3rd year in a row. It's been a long time now. The Canadiens have been one of the most injured teams in the league, going on 20 years. So there's maybe something to investigate there more than they even did last summer. But they're not a good team. The 3-2-1 point system is probably more reflective of where they are as a team right now. But I think the positives are still there to point out.
Yeah, I think the injury thing really is bad luck. I mean, it's they got rid of Graham Reinben. They made other changes to medical staff, and it's the same thing. I don't know what medical staff could have done to prevent Kirby Dach's knee injury or to prevent Newhook's ankle injury, or prevent a lot of the other stuff that's gone on. But, Marty St. Louis always talks about consistency and how important consistency is in the NHL as a team and for individuals. This team hasn't won more than 2 games in a row all season. They haven't lost more than 4 in a row. That's sort of, when you factor in the overtime in that. But that's the thing. Like, you're not going to make the playoffs when you can't win more than 2 games in a row. A playoff team, you need to go on a run at some point where you rattle off 5-6 wins in a row. I mean, 7 points out of the wild card spot. It's not how many points are out of the wild card spot. It's how many teams are ahead of you in that race for the wild card spot, because they're also picking up points. So it's one of those things where, they're just not a consistent team. And the injuries have really played a factor in that, because, Kirby Dach.
Yeah, it's tough, especially when you've got, is everyone frozen there?
We would have had, and they're just not consistent enough. And I think it's going to be depending, Kent Hughes was on Lanticham on RDS the other day, and was talking, they asked him, how many years away are you from being a playoff team? Is it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? And he sort of avoided answering the question. I understand why, but he also mentioned, health is going to play a huge role in when this team becomes competitive.
But do you also think that maybe health could, if you have better players, that you're not relying so much on certain players? I don't know if my question's really making sense, but if you have more of a stacked lineup, maybe so many players don't get injured because you're not playing them the same kind of minutes, that it's more evened out. Like, do you think that could be a factor? That obviously luck definitely plays into it, but the fact that they don't have the kind of players that they need to be a competitive team, could that also be one of the reasons why it's allowing it's leading the Canadiens to have so many injuries to key players?
Well, it's not even injuries, but look at the Bruins. They lost 2 of their top centers and their captain Bergeron, and they never missed a beat. I mean, it's not injuries, but 2 players are gone, and that's a case of just a better team, right? A lot more really good players.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point, Jess, that I think the Canadiens have to play harder to win than most of the teams in the league, right? You have to have everybody on board, all lines going in order to eke out wins. The goaltenders are under more stress, taking bigger, more high-quality shots against. So there is some level of attrition, I'm sure, that accounts for at least a part of the injuries. But I think Stu's right. Like, you look at the Kirby Dach injury, and there's no way really to avoid that. It's a total fluke 2 games in, and it essentially kills the season for the rest of the centers in the lineup, right? Everybody except for Suzuki now has to play 1 slot up more than they should, and Suzuki has to play more minutes than he should, and he's the only one that somehow, knock on wood, doesn't ever get injured.
And, these are all long-term injuries. You see these guys going down for, 2 or 3 months or the season of your key guys, and you got yourself a real battle to try and find a way to be competitive, and they're your top guys. And of course, it's every GM's dream to find, a very deep team where they can survive key injuries, and it's easier said than done when you look at what's happened to them in the last couple of years. And to put your finger on, why, it's really tough to say. It's just a situation, you can blame bad luck, but it's got to change in order for them to get their team together for an extended period and just see, where and what they're capable of doing. And I think that we got a taste of it before all these injuries started to come in, that they can be pretty good team and pretty exciting and competitive and have a chance to win every night. But you take some key pieces out of your puzzle, and you try and fill that void. Not easily done. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, and you make a good point. How they have to play. The Canes have to play harder than other teams. You look at that game New Year's Eve in Tampa, where the Canes go up 2-0 on the Lightning in the second period, and then the Lightning go, "Okay, let's start." And Kucherov wakes up and they lose. The Canadiens lose. It's just a case of Tampa has so much talent; they can almost turn it on and off when they want, whereas the Canadiens can't. They got to be, as Andrew said, they got to be going all 4 lines, going all out with really good goaltending, defense not making mistakes. It's a full 20-man effort for the Canadiens to get a win in this league.
And since the Canadiens need these players to play as much as possible, do you think that trading Sean Monahan is going to end up happening at the trade deadline? Like, would this be a smart move for Kent Hughes, or does he need to have him in the lineup and can't part ways with him at the moment? Rick, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, this is an interesting question. I mean, here's a guy that we're getting an opportunity to see him healthy and see what he's able to do, and third in scoring with goals, and what he brings to the overall team picture is nothing but positive. But moving forward here, do management feel that he's the type of guy that they want to have in their organization as long term? And what is it going to take if they decide to try and sign him? How much money is it going to take versus is he really an attractive guy to get to a team that maybe has a chance to get far in the playoffs and sweeten up a nice trade that Kent Hughes and company can look at and say this is going to make us better in the long term. And it's probably a lot of discussions that are going on how they're going to handle this, and they're just having an awful time just trying to keep the ones that are healthy staying healthy. And but Sean Monahan definitely is a piece of the puzzle that you'd have to think hard about what it would take to keep him, and if not, what are the other options in the event that another team was going to dig deep and give you something that would be really worthwhile considering.
Yeah, it's got to be one of the most difficult conversations in the management group, because you're weighing between killing the morale in the room, right? Because they're already killed by all these injuries, and then you take one of the most important players, probably the most important player in the lineup outside of the top line, and outside of maybe some defense, the most important forward, we'll say, outside of the top line, and trading him away, probably getting futures back, nothing that's going to help you right now, right? And they might have to find another center on the market just to fill a spot, right? But you're weighing that against the fact that you really need to make bank on this rebuild, right? We're now 3 years in. They have to start accumulating some forward depth to challenge for these spots. They have to start moving out some of those contracts that Bergevin signed on his way out the door. They cannot afford, I don't think, to keep Sean Monahan at the trade deadline. His contract is digestible for literally any team in any bad cap situation going forward. By that time in the year, any team can fit him in. He's a very good player who can help any team's power play, whether it's first or second unit. You give him some good wingers, he's going to play really well on a line, give a lot of offense. There's going to be a lot of teams that want to add a player like Sean Monahan. So I think they can't afford to not trade him, but the morale hit is going to be real. And I think the Canadiens are in for a pretty tough second half of the season. They actually have the highest strength of schedule of any non-playoff team. So buckle down, prepare for the wins to go away a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I think if you get offered a first-round pick for Sean Monahan, you make the trade. Don't even think twice about it. If it's less than that, I think you do think twice about it. I think you think, okay, if they're only going to get a second or a third-round pick. One of the things that Kent Hughes likes to do is he always makes a trade. He gets something and something, right? It'll be like a pick and a young prospect. So if it's like a second-round pick and a younger version of Sean Monahan who maybe hasn't worked out so well yet with the team, you maybe make that deal. But otherwise, I mean, one of the big things about Monahan, he's so well liked in the room. He's such a valuable player. He can play wing, he can play center, he can play on all four lines, he can play the power play, he can kill penalties. The guys in the room absolutely love him, and he loves playing in Montreal. Like, he wants to play here. He enjoys, I've spoken with, he likes playing in a place where hockey matters. He played in Calgary, he played in Montreal. Like, he doesn't want to go play in Arizona or somewhere where hockey doesn't matter. He likes the spotlight. He likes going to the rink and knowing that what he does matters to a lot of people. So factoring all that in, again, if it's a first round pick, it's going to be tough in the room, as Andrew mentioned. The guys really like him, but it's a business and it's a rebuild also. So if you get a first round pick, you make that trade in a heartbeat. And if you don't, you start negotiating with Sean to see what it's going to cost to keep him here I wouldn't sign him for more than 2 years. He's 29. He has stayed healthy this season, knock on wood, but there's a lot of injuries. Like, that body's got a lot of wear and tear on it. And we've seen what a lot of wear and tear on a body does to Brendan Gallagher, right? And Sean Monahan's had more surgeries than Brendan Gallagher has had. So there's a risk to me signing him for any more than 2 years. But he's a valuable player on this team. So if you're not going to get equal value, like a first round pick or something in return, I would look at keeping him.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it doesn't end up being a trade with the Colorado Avalanche, to be honest. I know that they looked into Monahan last year There have been a few trades now between the Avalanche and the Canadiens. They seem to have a good relationship. And if you look at what's happening with that team right now, obviously Arturi Lehkonen is out, but they're a one-line team. McKinnon and Rantanen are playing 32 minutes a night right now. Jonathan Drouin, who we all watched last year, he's having a big bounce-back season. He played 28 minutes their last game. 28 minutes for Jonathan Drouin. That's how desperate it is there. They acquired Ryan Johansson to be their second-line center. He played 11 minutes. He's just not fit in there at all. I think Sean Monahan is a big fit for them, and that's what I expect to happen.
He would be. I mean, Drouin, he's got 9 goals. he's got like 4 in the last 6 games or something like that. He's been
great.
It's been a great fit for him in Colorado with his old buddy Nathan McKinnon. And I agree, Andrew. Sean Monahan would be a perfect fit on that team. He really would be.
I think Sean Monahan would be a good fit on a lot of teams.
Yes,
that's true too, Rick.
He'd be a good fit on any team, basically.
You're gonna probably hear about we won't hear, but there'll be some phone calls happening down the stretch here and say, what's it going to take to get this guy on board? And, we know what he's capable of doing along with some of the other teams. So really interesting times for the management group.
He's a pro, right? He's just a pro. He does everything on and off the ice like a professional. I mean, you watch so many games of the Canadiens where they're scrambling in their own end. It's like panic situation. All of a sudden, Monahan gets the puck, turns behind the net or does something, and everything calms down, right?
Yep.
He has that ability to calm down chaos in the defensive zone and create in the offensive zone also.
Now, something I didn't think we'd be talking about in 2024 is how the Montreal Canadiens still have 3 goaltenders, and there's no clear starter just at this moment. But Samuel Montembeault, he's been playing very well as of late. Is it time for the Canadiens to say, you know what, this is the goaltender that we're going to give him as many starts as possible? Can they do this at this point? Andrew, what's your thoughts on this goaltending situation that the Canadiens still have?
I think you can say Montembeault absolutely deserves to get a run, right? As the starter. There's no question in my mind he's been the best goaltender of the 3, the most consistent, the most dynamic, has faced the most challenges. Although Primo has had some tough games too, where he's had to come out on top. But at the same time, you got to solve this 3 goalie issue. You got to let teams watch them. So you got to keep on doing it. And also you don't want to run Montembeault into the ground, right? I guess if they were trying to make the playoffs, I would say play him 5-6 in a row and then go to somebody else. But as it stands right now, I think the 3 goalie rotation has actually worked out on the ice better than it should have. I know nobody's happy with it, but all 3 goaltenders have been positive contributors to this club. And that's not a bad thing overall.
Well, one of the reasons it's worked out with the 3 goalies is that Jake Allen is a classy guy. I mean, he's obviously not happy about this. He hasn't really voiced it, but he's also been great with Caden Primo. I've spoken with Caden Primo. He's talked about how, even when Primo was in Laval last year and he was struggling, he'd get texts from Jake Allen all the time, just checking in on him, seeing how he was doing, giving him a little bit of a boost. And it's been the same this season. Sam Montembeault is one of the most likable guys you'll ever meet. He's a laid back, easygoing guy, good sense of humor. So the 3 of them really get along. So that's why it has worked. None of them are happy, but they're all unhappy sort of together. They understand the situation. And when Kent Hughes was on that Lanty Scheim interview the other night also, he was asked about that, and he said it could last all season. He says preferably it'll be solved by the trade deadline. I mean, Jake Allen's a guy who wants to trade at his age, but when you got a 3.52 goals against average, your value isn't going to be that high. So they need to play all 3 of them, right? You need to let Primo get some action. You hope that Allen hasn't had much help from his teammates either. His last 10 games, the Habs have scored 18 goals combined. But patience is one of Kent Hughes' strengths as a GM. So until he gets something that he thinks is of value or what he should get for Jake Allen, the longer you wait, maybe there's an injury to another number 1 goalie in another team and they get desperate and then Jake Allen's value goes up. Maybe he's going to be more valuable in the offseason if a team loses a goalie. So, but while I can see this happening the whole season, I think Montembeault should be the number 1. I think he should play 2 out of every 3 games and then rotate the other 2 guys to fill in there. But again, the reason this thing has worked so well is because you got 3 good guys as the goalies, and there's no bickering between them, and they're dealing with it the best way they can.
And Montembeault for me is deserving of the number 1 guy. I mean, his save percentage 906, 2.93 goals against average. The guy has delivered. he deserves a lot of credit for being able to step in there and shows the consistency that he's been showing. And you go with him, you let him play. It's a long year, injuries, scheduling, all that stuff. They have a good situation as far as chemistry goes, like Stu had mentioned. They have a pretty good group, the best it can be for 3 goalies, and you just find ways to keep those guys sharp. But I am surprised that we still have 3 goalies in the system, and I don't know how much longer that's going to last. Seems to me we've said that before.
Moving on to rapid fire, we're almost at the halfway mark of the NHL season, so I want to get your thoughts on some of the players on the Canadiens and how they've been doing. So we'll start off with Cole Caufield. Andrew, what's your assessment of his play?
I really like his attention to defense. His transition play has improved. His playmaking has improved. The scoring hasn't been there. He had a little stretch there where it looked like it was getting back, and hopefully we're back into that once they get back on the ice here. But I'm not worried about Cole Caufield. We all know he can score goals. I think if it was not getting chances or not getting high quality chances, I would be more worried, but he's getting to better areas than he did last year. His shooting percentage is half of what it was last year. So, if you look at that, and if last year or the entirety under St. Louis, which his shooting percentage, I believe, is about 17.5%, which is quite high. If he was doing that this year, he'd have like 22, 23 goals. I don't think anybody would complain. He's getting the right opportunities. And the other thing is, even if he was getting poor opportunities, the average shooting percentage in the NHL this year is like 9.7%, 9.8%. Is Cole Caufield a below average NHL shooter? Everybody knows that's not true. So whatever's happening right now, I believe is 100% a momentary issue. And he's going to get back to scoring at the rate that we expect very shortly.
Well, with 11 goals heading into the game against Philadelphia, he's on pace to finish with 23. He had 26 in 46 games last season. His game has improved without the puck, no doubt about that. But the Canadiens are paying Cole Caufield $9.975 million this season to score goals. And he's not scoring enough of them to validate that contract. But you're right, Andrew. I mean, his shooting percentage, you figure it has to go up. The thing that concerns me, you wonder how much the shoulder surgery might factor in it, as he maybe lost a little bit off his shot. And he's also become predictable. I mean, he shoots that high short side so often, especially on the power play. And goalies seem to have figured it out. You see them, they come across and they come up, right, to take that corner away from him. And he keeps shooting there. So there's concern, but he scored goals at every level. I think he's going to finish the season with more than 23 goals, which he's on pace for. You would think he'd be close to 30. But before the season started, people were talking about 40 goals, 50 goals for Cole Caufield. So it's been, his offensive production has been disappointing. And if the Canadiens as this rebuild continues, you can't have Cole Caufield scoring 22, 23 goals a year. You need him to score a lot more than that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Cole is making a liar out of me when I said that he'd be scoring close to 40 goals. But anyways, in the big picture here, yes, the expectation was there for him to light it up each and every night. You give him a big contract, a lot of pressure for him to perform and deliver, and it doesn't happen to guys each and every year. I'd be more concerned if the opportunities were not showing up in his overall game. He's getting opportunities. He's not finishing the same way, but he does have the skills and the talent to find ways to get to those areas, to give him a chance to score. And ultimately, he's going to find a way to put some more in the net. But right now, it's unfortunate it's not happening. But I think, moving forward, he will find a way to make things happen, and the results should move along in more of a positive way with his getting back to his specialty, which is scoring goals.
Next up, we have his best friend and captain of the team, Nick Suzuki. Rick, how would you rate his performance?
Hey, look, there's a guy that almost point a game. Every game you notice him, he's doing something. Consistently, he's been effective in trying to make things happen and delivering. Great talent, young kid that's handled himself really well. and has a lot of pride in doing a good job and representing the Montreal Canadiens in such a positive way. And things will continue to go well for him as he gains more experience, and just a great all-around person.
Yeah, I don't know if we're giving letter grades, but if we were, I'd be giving Suzuki an A+ at this stage of the season. His defensive game is back where it was a couple of years ago when he was playing on the second or third line. Now he's playing against top line matchups, and his offensive game is there as well. And that wasn't something that he was able to do when he was the big defensive shutdown center. So he's doing both now for the first time in his career. If you look at a lot of the models, he's in the 90th percentile in terms of positive impact on his team, which is crazy. A lot of models have him as the runaway leader for the Selke this year. There's a lot of positive for Nick Suzuki. I think he's established himself as very clearly the best player on this team, the most consistent player on this team. And, he's a quiet guy, but he plays with passion every single night. And I get joy out of watching Nick Suzuki play hockey. I think he's one of the smartest players in the entire league. The way he knows just exactly how much pressure to bump a guy so that they move past the puck on a board battle, and then he's got his back to them already, and he's got the puck going the other way. Just little moments like that make him so special.
Yeah, consistency is the key word with Nick Suzuki. He's a consistent hockey player. If Cole Caufield starts scoring more, I'm convinced he's going to finish the season as a point-per-game player, something the Canadiens haven't had since Alex Kovalev a long time ago. And as you mentioned, Andrew, the analytics stats show he's a top contender for the Selke Trophy. So if you have a captain who's a point-a-game guy and a Selke contender and never gets hurt, I mean, it's remarkable. I was talking with Juraj Slafkovsky after a recent game and asked him, what makes Nick a good lineman and a good captain. And he was talking about the consistency and the leadership. And he said, since I've been here, he hasn't missed a game. So I said, well, since he joined the NHL, Suzuki hasn't missed a game. And Slafkovsky went, really? He couldn't believe that the guy had played that many games in the NHL without ever getting hurt. So he does everything right on and off the ice. He is a quiet leader. I asked Slafkovsky, does he speak to you a lot on the bench and that? He says, not really. If something needs to be discussed, we discuss. But he just leads by example. Just goes out there and does everything right on and off the ice. You can see why the Canadiens made him the captain. He's the leader of this team. He's the heartbeat of this team, which is what Brendan Gallagher said when he was given the C. And everybody think Brendan Gallagher is a heartbeat, but Nick Suzuki is the captain. He's the most and the C stands for consistency. As Marty St. Louis was saying, consistency is so important in the NHL, and Nick Suzuki has that in abundance.
And he's so strong on his skates for not an overly real big guy, and very seldom you see him get knocked down. And
he's a big lower body. You see him in street clothes or in shorts. He's a strong. His strength is all from the waist down.
Yeah, and he wins a lot of those one-on-one battles just through his determination and willingness to compete and win.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. He's a nice guy, but he can be nasty on the ice. He's not a fighter but he's tough. He's hard in one-on-one battles, and that's why he wins so many.
Yeah. Next up,
sorry.
No, we're just going to move on to the next player. Stu, you mentioned him a little bit before. Brendan Gallagher. What do you think of his performance?
I'm one of the last guys. I've been defending Brendan Gallagher, and I thought, healthy this year, he'd score 20 goals. And he's on pace for 13. The work ethic is there game after game, night after night, but there's nights it's hard to watch just because he's just age and the injuries and everything have caught up to him. 3 more years at $6.5 million. That contract that Berkshire may give him isn't going to age well. But I'll say it again, Brendan Gallagher has earned every single dollar the Canadiens have given him. The effort level is always there. It's always there. You're getting 100% every single time he steps on the ice at practice and in games. But he's not the player he was. I mean, age catches up to everybody, and he's also had a lot of injuries. So, now on pace for 13 goals. Brendan Gallagher, I thought 20 goal scorer. I don't know if he's going to reach that total again, but he's doing a lot of things right away from the puck. Never complains, works hard, still a popular guy, still a leader. Helps Nick Suzuki with the leadership role. Brendan's obviously a much more vocal guy than Suzuki is. But it's getting harder for Brendan Gallagher.
Yeah. I mean, we've mentioned before about Brendan Gallagher and his effort and his desire, and that's never questioned. But yeah, these he's having a tough time. He's not the Brendan Gallagher that we remember from a few years ago, and you know, you got to give him full credit. Though he does everything he can possibly do to help the team, and he's a guy you want to have on your side, and hopefully, you know, he can get a little more stuff happening offensively, and you know, this is the big challenge that he has, but he's not the one that we remember from a few years ago.
Yeah, there's a few things going on with Gallagher. I think his contributions are there, but you know, the line that he was on before Christian Dvorak got injured was him, Christian Dvorak, and Yoel Armia. And I think there's good things that you can say about each of those players, but Brendan Gallagher creates offense in a way that you need teammates to capitalize on his contribution. Neither Armia or Dvorak are great goal scorers. Neither of them are even above average playmakers. So they're not getting the puck to Gallagher. You could see, like in the last game, I thought the line with Jake Evans and Josh Anderson worked well, but there were several times where Gallagher goes in, he's ready to forecheck, but Anderson has the puck. And you could see Gallagher struggling to figure out what Anderson was going to do, because Anderson's a very unpredictable player when he has the puck. It's just a very weird style that he plays. So I think that he hasn't found teammates that work with him in the same way that he had when he was at his prime, right? He's not the same player for sure. But if he was playing, say, with Kirby Dach, a healthy Kirby Dach right now, we probably would be talking about a Brendan Gallagher 20-goal season, because he'd be able to play off of someone and create those opportunities that other players can capitalize on. He really hasn't had that opportunity this year since the first few games when Sean Monahan and Tanner Pearson were red hot, right? So I think that there's problems with him, but also what we see on the stat line right now is not indicative of the player that he is. I do think he can still be like a 20-goal, 20-assist player if he has players that can play off of him. The Canadiens just don't have that depth. Right now, him and Monahan basically have to drive lines on their own and carry other players who aren't used to playing in those situations.
Yeah, and Gallagher, when he was playing with Monahan and Pearson, that was their best line probably at that point, and most consistent line at that point. So when Pearson comes back from injury, you think Marty St. Louis will probably put them back together. Sean Monahan has an ability to slow down the game, which helps Brendan Gallagher, right? The way he's playing now. The other thing that was that goal he scored against the Rangers, like what a shot. Like Brendan Gallagher hasn't scored a lot of goals like that. Usually his goals travel about a foot, right? But so to see him be able to shoot the puck like that is some reason for optimism that he might be able to score from somewhere other than in the goal crease while getting cross-checked into the net.
Next player we've got is Juraj Slafkovsky. He's kind of had an up and down year, took some time to figure out his game. But Andrew, what do you think of it so far? How would you evaluate his play?
Huge improvement. Obviously, you can see the power forward in the making, right? Every game, multiple times a game, you see Slafkovsky go in on the forecheck and just pure out-muscle two different players at the same time. And it's him, Suzuki, and Caufield together as a line has worked out incredibly well, especially now that they've started to score, because for the first while, it was like you could watch them and they play amazing, but they weren't scoring, right? For the first few weeks they were together, they finally got their even strength goal, and now they're cooking. Slafkovsky has things to work on for sure. His shot still needs work. His timing needs work offensively, but his playmaking has improved greatly. He's getting more confident in his shot, which is great, taking shots when he should be taking shots. I see what he's going to be now in the future, and he's not there right now, but he's there enough that he makes his lines better, and that's a huge change from last year where he just wasn't an NHL player.
Well, I mentioned earlier they need more goals from Caufield. They also need more goals from Slafkovsky. Heading into Philadelphia, he had 4 goals in 39 games. Last season, he played 39 games before he got hurt. He had 4 goals. So that's 8 goals in 78 games. He was only 19, but he's starting to do a lot of things much better now. Like you can see, he's starting to use the one-timer now on the power play instead of always looking to pass the puck. He's using his body better. And it was a smart decision by Marty St. Louis to leave that number 1 line together now. Just let them play. And Slafkovsky's working. It's nice knowing that, every line's not going to work every night, but if you have a sort of off game, you're not going to have that line broken up. I think that's really helped with his confidence. But they need more goals. The other night when Armia scored, I sent out a tweet saying, Armia has 6 goals now, 2 more than Slafkovsky. And I just got bombarded by Hab fans. How dare you? Like, it's just the fact that the Army is a fourth liner who started the season in the AHL, never doesn't play the power play, has 6 goals, and Slafkovsky has 4. So it was just a stat. But the Habs fans love Juraj Slafkovsky, and you can't say anything negative or constructive criticism about it. But he does. I mean, Juraj Slafkovsky should have more goals than Joel Armia.
I think he's progressing in the right way. He's just starting to understand how to use his size, which areas he needs to go to. I wish he would shoot the puck a little more versus trying to look for those passes in those areas where he can shoot it instead of trying to feel like threatened, if you will, that he's got to give it to one of his other guys that are supposed to score the goals. He's handling himself really well. I hope that he's starting to understand that don't be like a Peter Sabota and take a shot to the face with somebody finishing your check. Be ready, because I feel for him for some of the hits he receives. But again, this is progression. This is experience, and this is something that he learns with time. And Martin St. Louis is giving him every opportunity to develop and hone his skills. And let's just keep him going this way, and we're going to see bigger and better things moving forward.
And we've seen him working on his shot before practices. The Canadiens had a shooting coach in the other day, and he was working. So he's a big guy. He's got a good shot. He's got to take a little bit of Cole Caufield and just shoot. Like, even if you're not in a great scoring position, shoot. There's games where you see him get the puck in the high slot, a great scoring chance, and he's thinking, what do I do? Don't think, just shoot. He's got a great shot. And once he starts doing that, he's going to get more goals. And even if he doesn't get goals, there's going to be rebounds for Caufield or Suzuki to put in. So the thing I think they're trying to Canadiens, Marty St. Louis said that they don't want to throw too much at Slafkovsky at the same time, like teach him one thing and then move to another. And it seems like now the real focus is on shooting the puck. And once he starts shooting the puck more, big guy's got a good shot, the goal should come.
Yeah, he's got the killer instinct without the puck. Now he needs to develop it with the puck, especially in the slot.
Yeah, just like shoot. Like, don't think, do I pass to a shoot? If you get the puck anywhere in near a scoring area, shoot it.
And the final player that we will be discussing today is Mike Matheson. Rick, being former defenseman, what's your thoughts on him?
Obviously, a great player, a guy that brings so much, mobility back there, with a beautiful skater, one that is always looking to contribute offensively, almost to the point where I get a little concerned with his defensive zone play when he's playing a little bit of a high risk, jumping in, maybe not at the best time. And I would love to see him be a little more defensive minded when it comes to, defensive zone coverage, instead of being on the offensive side of things when he shouldn't be. And not just him, but in general, some of the guys. But what a player to have on your side that can bail out, or get the puck out of that defensive zone with his speed and skill and passing ability. And he's racking up quite a few points with his offensive play, and he's fun to watch. I mean, what a great player.
Yeah, Rick, no knock on you, but I bet you must wonder what it would have been like to be able to skate like Mike Matheson, right? I think 95% of the defensemen in the NHL probably think the same thing.
Well, I remember playing with Team Canada with a guy named Paul Coffey, and I looked at him. I was like, there's no effort in him going 100 miles an hour. And, Mike Matheson, in today's game, it always has been, but him, the way he's able to get up the ice and back down, he can be almost on the forecheck and be the first guy back, on the defensive zone. That's a gift that is really fortunate for him, that he can do those type of things and bring a really nice overall game to the Habs blue line.
Well, he is high risk, and the reason he's high risk is that Marty St. Louis wants him to be high risk. Like, Marty St. Louis has just taken the leash off him and said, go. Just go. Do it. Just play your game. And they need that, because this is a team that struggles to score goals. I mean, Caufield is tied with, heading into the game as Philadelphia, he's tied in points with Cole Caufield. They both have 27 points. They need to generate offense. And Marty St. Louis and Stefan Robidev obviously told they've given him a long leash. Like they've told Matheson, play your game. And you're right, Rick. I mean, you see him get caught up ice and you go, and then he comes storming back 100 miles an hour. I mean, he's not Bobby Orr, but he can play that type of game where you think he's caught and he comes busting back. No, he's averaging over 25 minutes a game in ice time. He ranks 6th in the NHL. Think about that for a moment. He's playing a ton of ice. So the more you play, the more mistakes you're going to make, especially when you have the puck on your stick as much as Mike Matheson. But to me, he is one of the most important players on this team right now and moving forward. There's not a lot of guys, defensemen in the NHL, that can play that style of game. And there's not that many coaches in the NHL that will allow a defenseman like that to play that style of game. So if Marty St. Louis told him, we don't want you doing this, we want you to hang back, Mike's a smart guy. He'll do what the coach tells him to do. But it's nice to see, especially in Montreal, where defensemen were told, get it over the red line and dump it in. Don't carry it in. Don't pinch at the blue line. Everything was safe, right? And we've seen that for so long from the Canadiens. And when you hear fans complaining about Matheson making mistakes, would you rather go back to the days where a guy like Matheson is told to just dump it in when you get over the red line and never take a risk? He takes risks, but he gets rewarded more than he gets penalized for them.
And I mean, if you look around the league and you see the overall way the game is played, defense are involved all the time. They're in there. They are part of the offense now. They're well inside the offensive zone. The only concern that I have, yes, I'm all for it. You know what, guys? When the time is right, pick your spot and go for it. When it's not right, hang on. Just don't force some things. And I see a lot of times Barron is the same way. He gets a chance, or he gets a little bit sidetracked when it comes down to it. He wants to help out, which is fine. But don't force a situation where you're going to cause an odd man rush, leaving the front of the net wide open. Be selective, be intelligent in your choices and the timing of it, so that you don't put yourself in a situation where the goalie has to stand on his head again to bail you out from a breakdown from a defenseman that shouldn't be going when he's going.
Well, Jonathan Kovacevic spoke recently about St. Louis getting really angry at him. I think it was a game against Pittsburgh because he did pinch in when he shouldn't have. But if Matheson had done the same play, he probably wouldn't have got mad at Matheson, right? He's going to give Matheson a lot more leeway when it comes to that than he's going to give Kovacevic.
Well, Matheson's going to be able to get back in the play too, right?
Yes, exactly.
His skating is just ridiculous. There was a shift a couple games ago, I think, where Matheson was out on the ice for like 90 seconds, and then he made a pinch, gave up an odd man rush, and he got back and took away what was essentially a breakaway from the opposing player. And I was like, how does he have the energy to do that? But I like Rick's comparison to Paul Coffey, because I think when Matheson is great, man, is he ever great. Like, it's astonishing some of the things that he can pull off. But when he's bad, he's real bad. Like, he makes some really bad mistakes. And I think there are times where he gets caught up thinking about the offensive play, and he's thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead of where he is and not focusing enough on where the puck is or who has the puck, who the opponent is. If he was on a second pairing on a contending team, I think we'd be talking about Mike Matheson all the time across the league as one of the most exciting defensemen in the game. But having to play as a number one guy, he just gets a little bit overtaxed sometimes. And it's not a fitness thing. It's just an attention to details thing that holds him back from being, one of the best defensemen in the NHL.
Yeah, he's probably the fittest guy on the team. I mean, his conditioning is as top level as his skating is.
And I think you mentioned Kovacevic, getting caught on the pinch, which he got caught and looked bad because he trusted the forward who was supposed to cover for him. But, the reality here is, you got a good mix of guys that try and complement each other. And Kovacevic, I really like the way this guy plays. And I just wanted to mention his name, that he's steady Eddie there and nothing flashy, but he's effective.
Well, that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to be back. And share your thoughts in the comment section below. Which players have impressed you? Which ones do you want to see more from? Make sure you like and subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out YouTube channel. And make sure to check out the Montreal Gazette for all your daily Habs coverage.